Alright, so you guys know that I had to build new filters for the 120-gallon aquariums. You also know that I'm doing things out here in the gallery the way I personally really want to do it. But when it comes to these 120s, I not only had to build one, not two, and not three, but four of these overhead aquarium filters. Now, mind you, I've already shown you guys how to build this method before. Years ago I did it, and then recently I showed you how to do it again with the planter box. It was only about 3 feet long. I had to build it just to get by, just to put a filter on that tank. And these tanks are against the wall, so I can't have a hang on the back. I don't want anything internal. I can't put anything underneath of them like a sump or a canister or whatever, because these guys are stacked up. So I figured, you know, knowing me, I'll go with something that's built overhead. Today I want to show you guys how I got to this point. I still have to do a few things, like of course install the media. I want to build lids. There's a few other little things that I got to do, but I'm waiting on parts. However, I don't want to make you guys wait any longer. I want to give you a basic idea of just how sexy the aquarium gallery is about to become. I'm doing things out here that I've been wanting to do for the longest time, and I don't care how they rank on YouTube or how popular they are, and if you guys are anything like me, I know you're going to love what we're going to be coming up with. With that said, I love building things and tinkering around and fixing things. What?
What? What about the dishwasher?
Pardon?
What about the dishwasher?
Give me that. What did you just say?
What about the dishwasher?
It's
been broken for like a month or more.
Here, I told you I would fix it. I told you I would fix it. Look, I gotta make... Don't cut me off of my videos and do not expose me that I haven't fixed the dishwasher. Okay, my dishwasher's also broken. I have to replace a valve. I tried to fix it and I flooded my kit. They're used to me flooding things. We currently have a dishwasher though, and it's you. No? Okay, I'm gonna show you guys how I built these. First and foremost, the prices of everything have skyrocketed. Just about a year ago or 2 years ago, the last time I purchased an acrylic sheet that was 6 millimeters thick, I think I bought it for like $120, $150 Canadian. Right now it's going for $340 Canadian. Now I built 4 of these, and including the pumps, it translates to about $100 American. Mind you, you're not buying this and a pump ready to go for $100. Not only are these really nice, but they're going to be incredibly capable of filtering a 120-gallon aquarium. They're 7.5 gallons each. They're 4 feet long, 6 inches wide, 6 inches tall. They're going to fit snugly against the background. Anyways, today I'm going to show you how I built them, and I want to talk about some of the things that we haven't talked about before. I got to flame polish these. These are like razor blades right now. If you don't, you know, at least sand the edges of acrylic or use a propane or MAP gas torch to kind of polish the edges, which I haven't gotten to yet, these will cut you. So I'm going to try to stop holding them as much as I have been, because it's a matter of time before I'm going to be, you know, diced up. Okay, so full disclosure, I'm not doing a step-by-step tutorial. I'm going to just be doing a basic rundown of how I built these. If you want like the all-inclusive tutorials on how to build an acrylic aquarium, I've got countless videos on it. I wrote a book on how to do all of this stuff. I mean, the resources are there if you really want to do it. Today I'm just going to show you a basic idea of what I did. Now, a lot of this might seem complicated or require a tremendous amount of talent. None of these are pretty, none of these look good. I could just build things to make them work, and when it comes to aquariums, they never look good. I just make them hold water. They don't leak. The biggest thing when it comes to building an acrylic aquarium or anything that's going to hold water using 6 millimeter thick acrylic or less, this video is going to be really good for you guys, because this is all just going to come down to the prep work. The first thing I like to do, and a lot of people don't do it, is remove the protective paper off of it. It's just like a sticky paper that goes on it. Some people just peel back the edges, and I do that for larger tanks and whatnot. But when it comes to these types of things, I just tear it all off, because I'm going to have to eventually anyways, and a lot of the times I don't create too much of a mess. Mind you, we're going to talk about the prep work for the most part, because that is the most important thing. I'm going to show you how to build these without using tools. You could have got these cut at the acrylic distributor, or you could have cut it yourself, and if you've got a table saw with a triple tip carbide tip blade, or I'm sorry, a triple tip carbide tip blade, you're laughing. You're going to be able to cut through this acrylic no problem, and you don't have to do any surface prep with routing or scraping or anything like that. You can just build it as is. Electrical tape is going to save you a ton of money and a ton of stress. When it comes to building with 6 millimeter thick acrylic or less, we're going with the capillary method of fusing the sheets of acrylic together. I've shown you guys how to do the pin method, and that's for thicker acrylic because the cement doesn't tend to get through it completely. I start out by prepping the tanks, or prepping the sheets of acrylic, removing the tape, or removing the paper, and then finally putting the tape down first. Electrical tape has a tendency not to leave any sticky residue or anything that you wouldn't want on the tank. It comes off and goes back on super simple. The thing that I like about it is watch this. See that? See how stretchy it is? These electrical tape is the poor man's clamps. I got clamps, but it's for building big tanks like the 375 gallon aquarium. It's not, I don't use clamps on this little stuff. I use my little poor man's clamps, and you'll see exactly how that works in a second. I lay everything out. The bottom piece I leave the paper on because a lot of times I overuse the cement and it gets underneath and it might stick, but if the paper's there, it's going to protect it, so don't mind the paper, it eventually comes off. I flip that upside down and I add the tape to the bottom of that bottom sheet. Then I flip it over and I'm ready to kind of like build it with tape. I put it together and I hold it together with tape. The only thing I'm concerned about is making sure that there's no gaps at all in between any of the acrylic surfaces that are touching. Once the shell of these aquariums or overhead sumps are put together, I want to put in the baffles. Now we'll talk about the baffles here in a second, but baffles essentially just compartmentalize the sump. And in this case, I just went ahead and drilled holes in them that are about a ½ inch in diameter with a step drill. The beauty of working with acrylic is that if you have tools to work with wood, you can work with acrylic. You can use drill bits and table saws and any other type of wood tooling equipment on acrylic. It's absolutely awesome. Downside is, and the only problem that I have with acrylic is that if you make a mistake, too bad. A lot of the times the mistakes are irreversible, or you need some really good tools to correct it, like some really good saws and routers to kind of cut it apart and try to put it back together. And I'll explain why here in a moment. With the baffles in place, I use the tape to hold it all together, and when I want the pieces to hold together really tight, I just stretch the tape to hold it together tightly. That's it, really simple. Now here's something funny. We use acrylic cement, and it's technically not a cement, but this is how long it's been since I built anything out of acrylic. It's literally all rusted. You want to apply the cement with a needle. Now, if you can't get any needles or get it from a farm supply store, that's the best place to go with a larger gauge needle. You can just go to a pharmacy and order a couple of needles that way, and you can inject the cement like that. If you are absolutely positive you did all the prep work properly, the edges are straight or the edges are flat, it's all held together properly, you're ready to add the cement. Adding the cement is like the fun part and the easy part. Everything else was the more difficult thing. When you're adding the cement to it, you're just running it along the edges, and what happens is it's wicking into the seams of the acrylic via the capillary action, meaning that it's technically getting sucked in. Now this won't work for thicker acrylic, it won't go all the way through. A lot of times you gotta put it on one end and on the other, but what works even better is the pin method, and I've shown you guys how to do that as well. On 6 millimeter thick acrylic or less, I'm not messing around with anything fancy. I'm gonna use the capillary method, which is technically the most amateur way you could do this, but it works every time, for me at least, as long as the edges are fine. You'll know it's working when the seam turns perfectly clear. Now, Tamara was present when I did this, and as she was watching it, what did you say as you described it? Here.
It's so satisfying.
Yeah, so it actually is oddly satisfying. And these are working with acrylic, and that's the best part, is when you are putting the cement through the seams, it is oddly satisfying because it changes color completely. But for me, it means that the seam is perfect. So it's satisfying to her because it's completely changing color and it looks like it's going together, but for me, it means this is gonna work. Now it's weird that this is even called a cement because technically it's not really a cement. It's more like a solvent, but even a solvent, here's how this actually works, and this is what I find fascinating, is this goes on as a water-thin liquid. It goes into the seams of acrylic and it reacts with the acrylic. It softens it technically. It softens the two edges and they fuse together on a molecular level, and then the solvent evaporates. Like if you were to take rubbing alcohol and have a few drops within a few seconds, if you don't wipe it up, it's like gone. Same thing. Problem is you only got like a minute or two before it's too late to make any further adjustments. I love saying molecular. So with these guys all together, I went ahead and took a hole saw, just a wooden hole saw, nothing fancy, meant to drill holes in wood, and installed some bulkheads. One's going to be a drain, which is a 1-inch drain, and the return, which pumps water into it, is only 3/4 inch. This is more than enough. I've also off-centered these a little bit so that when they go on top, it doesn't get in the way of the trim or the bracing. I still have to figure out how we're gonna hold them on top. I'll probably just put a board or something, nothing too crazy, but these are gonna look absolutely amazing. The way these work though is identical as the way I showed you before. Water's gonna come in through here. We're gonna have some cotton batting and as well as some sponge. Water has to flow up through it and then through these little holes here. Now this entire compartment here is going to be packed full of biological media. And in here, it's 2 feet wide. I'm sorry, it's 2 feet long here, 24 inches by 6 inches by 6 inches. It's a massive amount of storage area for biological media. Now, why would the drain area need to be this big? I thought, well, maybe I want to have some chemical filtration. I made it long enough to accommodate a heater if I ever need to add a heater. Although I probably won't because I heat the building as opposed to individual aquariums. Odds are I'll probably just put some more biological media in here. Maybe I'll put activated carbon in here or something. We'll see what happens. But then it drains through the tank. It'll be distributed. We pump it back up and the cycle just simply continues. You guys have seen how these work in the past. Works the same as any other filter. The benefits to this is we have 7.5 gallons of extra water volume, a massive amount of biological media. We can have our heaters. We can have water polishing. All I got to do is remove the cotton batting from it, replace it, whenever I want to, once a week, every 2 weeks, that sort of thing. And that's it for maintenance. No equipment in the aquarium whatsoever besides one pump, which I'll put behind the backgrounds on the 120s. The 120s and the 40s are technically the only aquariums that are going to get backgrounds. The 180s will not. So we'll have to get a little creative with how we'll do the filtration there. But the filtration that we're going to be building on there is a method that I came up with, I think it was about 13 years ago. I was looking at older pictures and I've been wanting to filter 2 aquariums with one filter using this method, not this method, but the method I'm going to show you guys here eventually, for 13 years. You guys are going to love it. Anyways, I still have to build the lids, we still have to get more plumbing parts, we still got to pack in the media. Shoot, I even got to put the tanks in place and drain these guys, build the... There's so many more things to do out here, and if you guys want to follow along for all of that, you're not subscribed to this channel yet, make sure you do, or you're going to miss it. And I'm telling you, you're going to miss out on quite a bit. I'll see you guys in the next video.